My name is Neely Shahal, and I'm from the marketing team, and I will be your webinar coordinator today. Today's topic is on ensure high sales efficiency with Salesforce CPQ automation rules. The reason why we're going into this topic to start off with is that there is a constant pressure to do more with less, especially during our challenging economic times that we're in now on a global scale. CPQ automation can help your sales team to streamline the quoting process and increase efficiency, but you have to make sure that you're implementing the right workflows because that is key to achieving the high user adoption and maximizing the benefits of automation. So in this webinar, we're going to be discussing a few of those rules, the challenges and the solutions, and how to set up the automation rules. And we could not have had a better expert than Daniel to take us through these rules. Today's speaker is Daniel Yarovoy. He is a CPQ certified Salesforce architect with over 17 years of Salesforce experience. He has worked on multiple enterprise projects, including working for Salesforce directly, and he has his own contribution to the platform. And we want to make this webinar as useful for you as possible. So please feel free to drop your questions in again in the chat and we will answer as many as we can. I hope you enjoy the session. And with that, over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Nili. And let me start. And I'll start with a general QTC overview. What is QTC? It's a quote to cash. It's a Salesforce-based cloud system which allows users to complete the entire process from quote to the invoice in efficient and professional manner. And I'm familiar with the system, and I hope you saw it as well before you joined the seminar. So because I'm going to talk about some specific places and specific problems with the default configuration and how we can improve the overall efficiency. But if you have any specific questions about the system or about what I'm doing, feel free to type your questions and Kiran will let me know. So what Salesforce CPQ allows us to do and Salesforce billing. It presents us automated pricing and it lets us to create accurate and formatted quotes and invoice documents and send it to the customer in PDF format. It improves and overall the ability to sell and generate the revenue for the company. And it has many other different perks like discounts, approvals, and so forth. So in general, it's calculated that using QTC, which consists of Salesforce CPQ, configure price quote, and Salesforce billing, it improves 30% in all the areas in overall operations, whether it's reduction in the time needed to generate the quote, reduction of the number of quotes, reduction of the errors generated in the quote itself. So it's in this slide is 38%, and many other things. So I'm not going to read them all, but you get the idea. So in average, it's an improvement for the company operation for 30%. What are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about QTC system, and it consists of three major packages. So first of all, it's configure price quote. Then it's Salesforce billing, and it also works in the conjunction with the Sales Cloud. So it means you cannot have CPQ and billing if you don't have Sales Cloud. And the system is huge, and there are a lot of areas to work on, a lot of areas to customize and optimize. But we are going to talk about specific area which is related to the quote creation. It's when we move from Sales Cloud into CPQ. In Salesforce terms, it's when we go to the opportunity and create the quote out of the opportunity. And for this particular process, I'm going to discuss problem points and how we can solve them. So as you heard, and you know that QTC is a great tool to solve many problems, but still our system is pretty big and it's new. it's ahead of their competitors, but there are things which still needs polishing. And for example, it's extra fields on the form, it's redundant steps, which will lead to the data loss, data logs, inability to complete the order, and data discrepancy and loss of the data integrity, and so forth. So now let me talk about the first problem point I'd like to highlight. It's the screen for the new quote generation. And the way I'm going to conduct this workshop, I'm going to have two sandboxes, one with the default out-of-the-box configuration and another sandbox where we implemented the automation rules and customization to make the process better. So I'm going to exit of my presentation. And here I'm on sandbox, which has the default configuration. And I'm going to my test quote, and out of this test quote, test opportunity, and out of this test opportunity, I'm going to generate a new quote here by pressing the new button. And as you can see here, we have many fields which will burden the end user, and not all of these fields are mandatory. And in most of the cases, a company doesn't need these fields, doesn't need the specific fields. And one of the asks for the developer is to remove these fields and place only the fields on the new quote screen, only the needed for the company. And on top of that, for example, even though we generated the quote out of the opportunity, I still need to check to fill it in here. It's pretty fast, but still it can generate unneeded errors, which we can avoid by automatically filling these fields and improve the overall process in general. So I'm saving the quote. And the quote is created. Now I'm going to a different sandbox. And here I have a custom button, create a quote, which creates a totally different window where we have much less fields in here, only 4, for example. We can have any fields we want. And this change, in my opinion, it changes a lot for the end user to have only what we want, to have not to have such a busy screen, to have exactly what's needed for the business process. And I choose only 4 quotes in here, only 4 fields in here. And I'm creating a new quote on a different sandbox. And I'm going to my last quote here, which is 71. And you can see that opportunity in account is automatically pre-populated. So now let's talk about the solution of this problem, how it was done. There are many ways of doing customization in Salesforce, and which makes it such a powerful tool and better than other tools that are available out there. And one of them is called Flow. And for this particular problem, we're going to use Flow, which is called Screen Flow. And I'll show you what's inside. So the flow can be pretty complex. It can have if, else logic. It can have loop logic. So, but to start this, let's say it's simple. So we have a new screen. Then we are assigning variables from the screen to the corresponding variables in Salesforce. And then we're creating a record. So the flows are usually done through drag and drop. An administrator doesn't have to have coding experience to create a flow. He can drag and drop available options, but he needs to connect what he drag and drops accordingly, so that everything is going to work as it's supposed to. So we have 4 fields here, which were dragged from the left window. In this screen, we have assignments of these fields to the Salesforce object into the fields on the object. And in the last screen here, we are creating a quote. I'm going to back to my presentation. This one is also pretty interesting. It's a second problem point I would like to share during the quote creation. So currently, with out-of-the-box configuration, we can create quotes on a closed opportunity, whether it's closed won or lost. And this will present the whole set of problems. This will affect the reporting. This will affect the data discrepancy. This will generate errors into the system. So it's the best advice to create some workaround, not to let it happen. And let me demonstrate it to you on a live system. I'm going to opportunities and I'm using this opportunity. It's a test opportunity, which is marked as a closed lost. And even though it's marked as a closed lost, I can go here and I can create the quote as usual and even mark it as primary in a closed opportunity. And you can see the quote is created with no issues on the opportunity which has been closed. So if we go into our customize sandbox, I'm going to my test closed opportunity, which is also closed lost. And I'm trying to create it. And I'm getting the error message that we cannot create the quote in the closed opportunity. This was accomplished using the same flow on top. We have different conditions. And for these particular conditions, it's the first one. I'm checking the stage of the opportunity, and it contains closed to cover both scenarios for closed won and closed lost. And if the condition is met, then I'm throwing the next screen with this error in here, which is fully customizable. You could put any text in here. If the condition is not met, then we continue with our flow in here. All right, I'm going to the third problem point, which is keeping the price book consistent through all the objects during the quote to cash process. So sometimes some of the related and required fields are not populated correctly due to the loopholes in the default configuration, and one of them is a price book. And if price book is not populated correctly, what is going to happen? When a user goes to the quote and he tries to add a new product or additional product, he will have a window asking him to enter the price book, because without it, the system doesn't know what prices to use for the products which is going to be added. And when, for example, a user who is not supposed to choose the price book or who's not qualified for this, he's burdened with the choice to choose the price book, which can be incorrect. This can lead to the error, which prevent from completing the entire cycle, from completing the order, and most likely the whole process needs to be redone from the beginning. So let me show it to you as I did before on our sandboxes. So I'm going to opportunity. I'm going to the quotes I created previously. And we can see that the price book is not populated on this quote. And if I go to the edit lines, this is the pop-up to select the correct price book for the user at this point. And this is definitely the wrong place to choose the price book. And if we go to the quotes on a different sandbox, okay, let's say the correct one. And if I go to my latest quote in here, which is 71, and you see the price book is here, is populated correctly. And if I go to edit lines, I'm not going to have this pop-up. And the system works as expected. And this concludes my third point. I talked about populating the correct price book on a quote, but I haven't said about the solution, how it was accomplished. And let me show it to you in here. So we can also assign the correct opportunities, accounts, and the price book and other related fields in the flow. But to show a different way of customization, we also implemented trigger logic in here. And trigger logic relies on Apex classes. and it requires the coding experience and a developer where they can script the solution inside the Apex class. And for this particular presentation, I have a class called Custom Quote Trigger Handler. And it's pretty simple. It's bulkified. And in here, for example, I'll show you that we are looping through the new quotes, and we are assigning the correct values we want. And we can have as much customization as possible. There are some governor limits when if we go in a very complex logic, and it often we hit these limits during the quote creation. But for this particular presentation, it's pretty simple. We have only two scenarios, primary quote and the price book. And I'm going to talk about primary quote next. But for example, for the price book, we retrieve the correct price book from the previous opportunity and assign it to the quote. And this way, we don't have this issue anymore with the price book selection. And now I'm going to go to the fourth problem point, and I'll show you the automation we created for this. And this one is particularly annoying, and there are some solutions which are going to be implemented for this in the nearest future. But previously, what happened when we create a primary quote and all the quote is also primary, a user had to go into the older quote and check the primary checkbox and go to the new quote and check the primary checkbox. And these are redundant, annoying steps which usually generate the frustration with the system for the salesperson or end user. And I've been asked personally and many times in different projects to create a primary quote management workaround. And let me show you on our sandboxes how it works. Okay, I've seen a default configuration behaving differently, but for these particular ones, if I'm adding the primary quote, what happens? I can just have multiple primary quotes on the same opportunity. And this is definitely wrong. So if I'm adding a new quote, it just adds a new primary quote in here. And let me show you in the correct sandbox. I can go to my opportunities. I go to the quote, and I'll show you that the quote 71 now is primary. And I go back to the opportunity, and I'm creating a new quote. And I don't even have the checkbox to mark it as a primary here. The customization and as we say, automation is done in a way that every new quote is going to be primary. And I'm creating this quote, and I'm reviewing all my quotes. And as you can see here, the quote 72 is primary, and the quote 71 is no longer primary, it's unchecked. And this is definitely a better way to handle and quote to cache process to improve overall efficiency, to eliminate possible errors, and the need to redo the work, which can be very complex in this case. And let me talk how it was done. So it was also done through the trigger logic. And as you can see here, we have two loops for the new quote and for the old quotes. And for the new quotes, we are setting primary checkbox to true. For the old quotes, we are setting to false. And this accomplishes the task. I'm going back to my presentation. And I would like to go again over the solutions we implemented and the solutions we talked. So Salesforce provides multiple ways of handling customization and automation. It could be flows, it could be lighting components, triggering classes, validation rules. CPQ has its own set of tools like price rules or product rules, which allow you to create an additional customization level. There are also, in addition to the package, which is called advanced approvals, and there are different approvals rules which can be implemented. So, and as the system getting more and more mature, with every release, the amount of available customization tools is only going to grow. And to review what I showed, so I showed a create quote solution with the flow, where the flow is done to minimize the number of fields on the new create quote screen. With the same flow, we handled the scenario where we cannot add the quote to the closed opportunity. And for the price book, I choose to handle it in a trigger to make sure the price book is passed to the quote, which is very important for the future process. And the primary quote management was also done in the same trigger, in the same manner as the price book. And this way, we eliminate the need for the end user to manage manually the primary code itself, which can lead to a lot of redundant steps. And it's all automated behind the scene. And this concludes my workshop. And this is the example of what can be done. It's not, by all means, it's not all. It's a complex tool with a lot of areas of improvement and customizations. And I know, guys, you probably already come across it. This is why you're here. And if you have any questions or suggestions, we're happy to help and listen.
Thank you, Daniel. So, Daniel, the first question that we have is, how do I know if my CPQ automation is matured and all important rules are set up?
Okay, there are a few factors which you can review after the rules is implemented. First of all, you can check the accuracy of the quote. So, for example, the rules are implemented and you're testing the quote and seeing if you're getting the results you were expecting. Second is the efficiency of the quote or the speed of the quote generation, if the rule helps the process or if it creates an obstacle to the process. The next one would be the user feedback or user adoption, if they like the customization which was implemented, or if they don't like, if they think it's a useless step and they're better off it. So it's very important to get the user feedback. And then the successfully integrated rule will be integrated with the other systems, because a quote to cash are always integrated or almost in all scenarios with other systems, whether it's Oracle NetSuite or SAP or different other systems. And if the rule does not affect this integration, and if the integration happens smooth, then the rule is implemented correctly. And then the main factor is customization too. So same as integration, you could get a feel and check if the overall system is customized correctly, and you could see if something is off the rail and off track. You can probably think it could be related to the new rule you integrated and it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So there are 5 factors. Let me repeat them back. It's accuracy of the quote, it's the efficiency of the quote process, it's a user feedback or user adoption, integration, and customization.
Yeah, so we actually are getting some in the chat, which is wonderful. The first one we have is from Amit, and his question is, how do I decide which CPQ version to pick?
I would say the best to pick up the latest version, the latest version, because this is, for example, if you need the customer support, they're going to go through the latest version. And if you create a Salesforce ticket and you have the older version, you can be asked to upgrade to the latest version, where the issues you probably will complain about are already fixed. And to receive the customer support for the older version is very challenging. So to avoid the request to update to the new version after you've done tons of development, and this update will affect this development most likely, it's the best practice to start with a new version first and see if it works.
Next question we have is from Rajaram, and he wants to know, how easy is it for a company to transition from a custom or a homegrown CPQ system to Salesforce? And more specifically, what are the challenges that companies can face?
To be honest with you, it's always a complicated process, and it needs to be done. It's most likely it's a mandatory process, because by dropping the homegrown system, you're going into the future. You're leaving the old world behind, and you're going along with the time. And as I already highlighted, using cloud-based Salesforce CPQ and Salesforce billing, in average, by statistical data metrics, improves overall functionality in all aspects by 30%. So it's a win there already. So if you want to improve your revenue grow, your efficiency, time, satisfaction with the tool in different areas, whether it's amount of reduced errors, or amount or time reduction for the code generation. It's 30% gain, 30% gain. But to transition, it's not a simple process, and usually the main challenge is to match the data system. Everyone has its own data system, and Salesforce has its own data system, and now we need to match, especially when we cover the legacy data. Because in most of the cases, when we transition, we not always want to create a new quote out of the system, but we want to carry over our old quotes, our old invoices to the Salesforce, and to see that the data structure from the homegrown system matches the Salesforce. And this will require a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, a lot of polishing and development to create this bridge.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Daniel. And thank you, everybody. We would love to stay connected with you and hear what all topics you have questions on so that we can address them in future webinars. Nothing is off the table, whether it's something that's more simple or very complex and challenging. We are all a part of this community to help each other out. Our Salesforce practice director is Tim Dusek, and his email will be placed in the chat if you want to reach out and speak some more. Please do not hesitate to do so. And with that, happy Wednesday, and this webinar is a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.